Do you know what makes February such a special month?
When I have a worry-filled mind, I like to wander outside. No telling what we might find. Birds calling, worms crawling, leaves falling down from above. Oh, I plant my feet on the ground. I keep my head in the clouds. I let my feelings out loud. I hear joy calling, fear crawling, tears falling down out of love.
Welcome, friends. Mrs. A here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you that my classes are starting soon. I offer a bunch of different online classes that you can find on my website here, so be sure to check them out. And while you're thinking of it, make sure you are subscribed to my channel too. Thanks so much. Now, let's get to the important stuff. Let's start by checking in with our brains and bodies. How are you feeling right now? You may remember we talk about how our body sends us messages throughout the day. We may feel tingling in our belly. We may feel pain in our knees. We may feel tense in our shoulders. There are so many different ways that our brains and bodies send us cues and messages, and it's important that we take time to listen to those and understand them. It takes practice to understand all the different messages, and that's why we always practice together. Today we're going to practice identifying what zone we're in. There are 4 different color zones or zones of regulation, and I have them here on my chalkboard. Let me tell you a bit more about them in case you don't know yet or you don't remember. The blue zone means that you are feeling kind of slow moving. You may be feeling a little sick or under the weather. You may be feeling a bit tired. You might be feeling sad, lonely, or depressed. The green zone means that you're feeling really comfortable. You're able to focus or do a job or a task. You're clear-headed. You may be feeling confident. The yellow zone means you feel like you're losing control. You may be feeling a bit worried. Your belly may be tingling or feel like there are butterflies in it. You may be confused or a little unsure of something. The red zone means that you are out of control. You're feeling overwhelmed. You may be feeling angry. You may be feeling stressed. Maybe you're tense in your shoulders, as I mentioned earlier. There are no good or bad zones or good or bad feelings. We all experience different feelings throughout the day, and they help us better understand ourselves and our needs and what's going on around us. So take a moment, identify what zone you're in right now. Go ahead and find an object that matches that color zone as well. I'll do the same. What color zone are you in? Thanks for sharing. You can see I chose a yellow object. I feel a little confused today. I feel like I keep trying to get things started and my brain or body just don't want to cooperate. So I've taken a couple walks to try to help. I've drank a lot of water, and maybe I'll need to try taking a nap later. There are a lot of different ways that I can help my body and brain feel a bit more comfortable and move toward that green zone. Have you ever tried any of those tools or strategies I mentioned? Oh, maybe you've tried something different. Share it. Amazing. Yeah, there are so many different ways that can help our own brains and bodies because we're all unique and different. And so different strategies and different tools work well for each of us. Another thing you might want to try is working out or exercising or moving your body. We always practice that together too, because moving our bodies, even if we're already in the green zone, can help us stay focused, can help us stay feeling comfortable. And if we're not in the green zone, then moving around or exercising can help move you toward the green zone. So we use our friend Fig here and the date to help us. And Fig always shows us one of the moves we'll do. Any guesses? Well, you can keep making those observations and we'll check back in with them soon. But for now, we are going to use February, the second month, to help us. And we're going to count up. So we'll do 2 exercises and then 3 and then 4. The first set of exercises we're going to do are arm stretches. You can do these sitting or standing, whatever's best. You're going to take one arm and reach it up over your head, kind of like a hat, and then gently push back just beyond your elbow. And we'll do 2 of these. So you can start on one arm and switch, or stick with one. Let's get started with arm stretches. Count with me. 1, 2. Next, we have 3 moves to do. And this is where Fig's going to help us. What do you notice about their body? Yes, their arms are over their head. Their legs are spread out. Oh, is this shape reminding you of anything? A jumping jack. Fabulous. Let's do 3 jumping jacks. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. Thanks so much. Thanks, Fig. Last but not least, we have 4 twists. And twists can be done sitting or standing. And all we have to do is twist in one direction, and if you want, to try the other as well. Let's count all the way up to 4. Ready? 1, 2, 4. Fantastic job. And finally, anytime you exercise or move your body, your heart rate starts to increase. And so we always practice breathing and cooling it down. We want to help our heart build those muscles by beating quickly and then relaxing once more. So listen for a bell, and when you hear it, fill your belly with air and then slowly let it out. Amazing work, friends. Thank you so much for moving your body with me today. At the beginning of this episode, I asked why February was a special month, and maybe you have a birthday in February or know someone who does. That's extra special. But I want to tell you a bit more about why I think February is special. I have some information about that in our message. Hello, humble humans. February is Black History Month, which has its roots in Black History Week, which was started by Carter G. Woodson. He was an author, journalist, and historian who noticed that a lot of the history being taught didn't include stories or experiences of people with dark skin. He worked hard to learn about and share knowledge so Black history could be preserved and taught even after he was gone. While Black history encompasses so many different things, we're going to look at a small selection of books today that might help us learn some new and interesting things. Though I hope we always seek special stories to help us learn and think deeply, no matter the month. Love, Mrs. A. Have you ever heard of Black History Month? Oh, wonderful. You may have heard about Carter G. Woodson, and he worked so hard with many other incredible people to make sure that Black history was preserved and taught, along with all the other history that we learn throughout our school days and throughout our lives. Now, while there's more history than one of us could ever hold in our brains, I wanted to introduce you to some really important people in Black history and also a really special place. So, let's look at these books that I have. This first one is called Maya's Song, and it's about an author and poet named Maya Angelou. This one was written by Renee Watson, illustrated by Brian Collier. And I love this book because it includes a bunch of poems that teach us about Maya Angelou's life. And I've read several of her books, and I really am fascinated by her story and her mind and how she was so eager to learn despite a bunch of challenges and obstacles. I've chosen some poems to share with you. One-Way Ticket. Maya was 3 years old when her mother and Papa's marriage ended. Maya and Bailey were sent to Arkansas on a train to live with their grandma. They wore tags on their arms in case you get lost their mother said. The train choo-chooed along, leaving behind California's always blue skies and no snow Christmases, leaving behind orange trees and lemon groves. As soon as the train pulled into Stamps, everything looked different, felt different. The yellow glow from the acid on the ponds, the way the air felt heavy and thick, the whites only sign on the doors of stores above water fountains. Maya wasn't sure if she'd like it in Stamps. It didn't feel like home, but she kept her head up, just like Papa taught her. We've talked in previous episodes about segregation in places that would have whites only or blacks not allowed signs on their door. And that was during a time called Jim Crow, when some people believed that we should be separate just because our skin colors are different. Let's hear a little bit more about Maya's life in Arkansas. Miss Annie's store. Everyone called Maya's grandma Miss Annie. Maya called her Mama. Mama never spent a dime on anything but land. She owned property that white folks lived on, and she owned a general store too. No whites-only signs here. At Mama's store, everyone was welcome. In the early mornings, just as the sun tickled the sky, before the store opened, Maya stood in the middle of the lye-washed wooden floors and inhaled, taking in the smell of oranges, onions, and kerosene oil. She looked around at the shelves, stocked with too many items to count. Cans of sardines, boxes of soda crackers, peanut patties, all kinds of candies, thread and flower seeds. Everything neatly stacked and in its place. By the time the sun was in full bloom, the store was a chorus of noise. People going in and out, the ding-ding of the cash register, 5 cents for this, 10 cents for that. The store was more than a place for shopping. This was the heart of town, a place where Negroes came for food, to eat, and to feed their soul. On Saturdays, barbers set up in the shade of the porch. The men told tall tales, trying to outdo each other. Who was the bravest? Who was the strongest? Troubadours moaned their songs and played cigar box guitars. Maybe living in Arkansas wasn't so bad. Maya saw what love looked like up close. She was in awe of the kind of miracle her mama was. The daughter of former enslaved people, and now here she was, owning so much. We talk about Black History Month, and in my message I mentioned Black History Week, but when it was first created it was called Negro History Week, and maybe you heard that word in this poem as well. Last one for Maya's song. Poetry is meant to be spoken. Miss Flowers, a family friend, had Maya over for tea and cookies and lemonade. "You gonna talk to me today?" she asked. Maya didn't say a word. "Well, if you won't talk, let's see what the poets have to say." Miss Flowers read poetry out loud to Maya. Every time they read poetry together, Miss Flowers noticed Maya's smile, the light in her eyes. "Maya, sweetheart, you seem to really love poetry, but you know, you can't really love poetry unless you say it out loud." Miss Flowers told Maya, "You can't really love poetry till you speak it, till you let the words in and out." Have you ever read poetry? Have you ever read poetry out loud, like Miss Flowers is suggesting? I just practiced reading some poetry out loud, and I have in some other videos too. Be sure to check them out. And if you like to write your own poetry, I'd encourage you to share it and read it out loud. Next, I want to tell you about someone named Malcolm X. He was a really important person in Black history and in all history, American history. And this book is really incredible because it documents his life as a child and a bit into his adulthood. And it's actually written by his daughter. It's called Malcolm Little, the Boy Who Grew Up to Become Malcolm X, written by Ilyasha Shabazz, illustrated by A.G. Ford. Malcolm X was one of the most influential men in American history. But before he became Malcolm X, he was Malcolm Little. Malcolm was born on May 19th, 1925, in the small Midwestern town of Omaha, Nebraska. He was born into a tight-knit family with parents who not only encouraged his natural curiosity as a boy, but also taught him lessons about discipline, fortitude, and self-determination. Malcolm's father was Earl Little, but there was nothing little about him. Papa Earl was a strong, broad, and towering man. His smooth, dark skin was as beautiful as the midnight sky. His voice resounded like gentle thunder whenever he spoke. His protection and guidance stretched up and around his family like the giant live oak trees in his home state of Georgia. Malcolm's mother was Louise Norton. Louise was born in the island country of Grenada, West Indies. It was a place known as the Spice Island, where the sweet smell of nutmeg and cocoa swirled together in the tropical air. Louise was a bright student who excelled at reading and math. She began asking questions at an early age about the mistreatment of people of color in her hometown. After Louise graduated from school, she left for Montreal, Canada, to join her uncle Edgerton, who was a co-founder of the Marcus Garvey movement. Followers of Garvey believed that all humans are created equal. In Montreal, Louise met the giant gentleman named Earl Little. Both of them had traveled to Montreal, focused on joining the struggle for freedom and justice. So even though Jim Crow era, as I mentioned in Maya's story, was upon people, and some believed that people should be kept separate because of their skin colors being different, there were also a lot of people who believed and still believe that everyone is created equal and deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. Malcolm's father would preach about faith, self-reliance, and hard work to throngs of people gathered at local churches and assemblies. The grown-ups in the audiences listened intently, their eyes fixed on Earl, their ears on his words, and their souls on his message. With arms raised high and eyes piercing with sincerity, Earl Little stirred the deepest parts of their beings. Malcolm felt the electricity in the room as the dignity and self-respect of those in the audience would steadily rise. The meetings were charged with the group's collective desire to create their own opportunities and to lead better lives. Malcolm's father reminded them that they were not merely the descendants of enslaved people, but that their African ancestors built some of the greatest civilizations ever recorded in history, and that they too could stand together to build a bright future for their children. These were lessons in hope and self-determination that Malcolm would grow to love. Malcolm sat with rapt attention at his father's uplifting messages proclaiming freedom, justice, and equality for all. And just as Malcolm found inspiration from his father's speeches at church, he learned some unexpected lessons from his mother's garden at home. For Malcolm, the enchanted garden of Louise Norton Little was an entire world of its own, where even the most sluggish of ladybugs and the fastest scurrying ants were all equally treated like esteemed and welcome guests at a family Sunday brunch. Here, savvy spiders busily crocheted their delicate webs along the foliage, allowing the strong Midwestern sunshine to cast pretty patterned shadows on the soft earth below. Geraniums dotted the field in the distance, with peppy pops of pink and purple as the crisp blue sky and lush green field connected somewhere far out in the horizon. In this sacred garden, beetles hustled about like harried businessmen on their way to important meetings, while snails lollied leisurely as they were on some kind of half-speed permanent vacation. Here, Louise taught her children to love every creature equally, large or small, pretty or ugly, busy or still, fast or slow, insect or plant. The garden was a testament to true and unconditional brotherhood from the earth on up to the sky, a daily lesson in acceptance and equality, Each living creature had a story, a purpose, a reason for being, and a beauty of its own. Through the majestic trees in the garden, Malcolm would also learn about the importance of roots, nature's anchors, the base of every living creature, and through the outspread wings of the chirping birds above, he began to see the power of possibility. We're going to pause here, but I would super encourage you to grab your own copy of Malcolm Little from your library or bookstore. And I'm curious, did you feel like you agree or disagree with Malcolm's mom or dad? Do you feel like you have any similar experiences? Have you listened to people talk who inspire you? Have you grown a garden and noticed all the creatures and how important each of them are? Have you thought, of course all people are created equal, and want to do something about it? You have some incredibly important connections to Malcolm Little or Malcolm X, and I would definitely encourage you to grab that book and read it on your own. Last but not least, H is for Harlem. I hadn't seen this book before, and I was so excited to find it at my library. It's written by Dinah Johnson, illustrated by April Harrison, and Harlem is an incredible place found in New York, and I just love learning more about it. I wanted to share that with you. We're going to start with this note from the author that tells you a bit more about Harlem and why I chose this book. You probably know the names of many cities and communities that are important in American history. New York might be one of those places. This South Carolina girl, that's me, the author, is fascinated with all of New York City's neighborhoods. Each one is unique. But I wrote this book because I've spent so much time in Harlem that it feels like a second home. And because I'm a student of African American culture, I read a lot about this special place. I want to share just a bit of what I've learned in H is for Harlem. Maybe you already know about the Harlem Renaissance, a period lasting from the 1910s through the mid-1930s, when Harlem was jumping with amazing energy. This energy has inspired countless individuals and organizations. In the 1940s, for example, the American Negro Theater celebrated Black experiences on stage. And over the years, talented orators such as Marcus Garvey have spoken powerful words that inspire us still. From 1979 to 1994, there was Lois Alexander Lane's Black Fashion Museum, whose collection now belongs to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. That's in DC. You can visit it. These are just a few of the stories connected to this incredible community. Whether they know it or not, the people who live in Harlem are surrounded by the work of African American architect J. Max Bond Jr., whose vision had a lasting impact on buildings all around New York, and especially in Harlem. The buildings are beautiful, and so are the children and grown-ups who lived and worked in them years ago and at this very moment in history. The energy, pride, and sense of purpose of its residents make Harlem just as exciting as ever. It is a place of possibility. I hope that you read H is for Harlem and learn a little about this dynamic, historic, and wonderful neighborhood. And I hope you feel inspired to learn more, not only about Harlem, but about the places where you live and the places that you love. Dinah Johnson. This book is set up to go through each letter of the alphabet, and we'll start at the letter D and look at just a couple letters after. D is for Dance Theater of Harlem. The night after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed in 1968, choreographer Arthur Mitchell called his friends, actors Cicely Tyson and Brock Peters, to meet at his home to brainstorm ways to honor Dr. King's memory. This meeting inspired the creation of the Dance Theater of Harlem in 1969 by Mitchell and ballet mentor Carol Shook. Since then, the Dance Theater of Harlem has been training young people to make magic with their bodies. The dancers represent Harlem with grace and power and energy in every city they visit, all around the world. Every step they dance is beautiful and bold. Have you ever practiced dancing? Maybe you like to dance at home, in your room. Maybe you like to dance at a community class or with friends outside. Dancing is such a beautiful way to express yourself, to share your magic. H is for Harlem. Harlem is a place like no other in the world. The Lenape, an American Indian people or indigenous group of people, were the first to live here, and to honor this land they called Muscata. In the 1600s, immigrants arrived from the Netherlands and named it after a city they called Haarlem, spelled with a double letter A. Haarlem has been home to many Americans, with ancestors from many countries. It is truly multicultural. But for a long time, people have called Haarlem the Mecca of Black America, a place where African American culture is living and breathing, shining and indestructible. I love that Haarlem is so multicultural, that people from all around the world are welcome there, live there, and participate in community there. Can you think of a space that feels really multicultural to you, where there are lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds, experiences, languages, shades of skin? Beautiful. Maybe it's your church. Maybe it's your school. Multicultural places really make my heart feel warm because it reminds me of all of those important messages we heard in Malcolm X's book and in Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, that we're all created equal. W is for Madam C.J. Walker. Years ago, lots of people depended on popular hair care and beauty products made and sold by Madam C.J. Walker. She was one of the first American women to become a millionaire, not because her parents were rich, but because she was smart and worked really hard. She had heart. Harlem was one of the places that she called home. Madam Walker was also a philanthropist. That means that she used her money to do good things for many people and many causes in many places, including Harlem. Do you like to practice philanthropy? When you donate money, or donate talent, things you're good at, or donate your time to help others? I am inspired by Madam C.J. Walker, not only because she was one of the first women to become a millionaire in the United States, but because she was also generous and gave of her treasures. What's something that you could share to help make your community better? Now, in thinking about ways that we could all go out and help our community and share our talents and our time or our treasures, I wanted us to take a mindful moment that helped remind us that we're all connected. This is a breathing activity where we're going to use our finger to make an infinity shape. It almost looks like a number 8 that is laying down. And we are going to breathe in as we circle one loop and breathe out as we go through the other. You can keep making this shape as you breathe in and out. We'll do this for 5 breaths. You ready to try it with me? Okay, breathe in. Out. In. Friends, thank you for trying that mindful moment. As a reminder, at the end of each lesson, there's a different mindfulness activity that you can practice. So make sure you hit that red subscribe button if you haven't yet, and go back and check out all those other mindfulness activities and see which ones you like best. I wanted to remind you that I love you because you're you, not because of what you do. And I can't wait to see you next time.